Welcome to TechTiger-Academy. I'm Ravi Malhotra, your instructor for this Learn Checkpoint with Ravi, NGX CCSA, CCSE, and CCSM series, guys. I welcome you all. And in this lecture, we are going to talk about deployment modes, right? The deployment modes are very important as they will actually give you an understanding of how you can how to configure an architecture. In the last video, right, what we understood about an architecture, we understood about the different components of checkpoint secure architecture. The different components we have is one is security management server, other is security gateway, and other is a smart console. Now that's fine, right? But then what next, right? So what next is that there are different deployment modes, and these components can be installed as in different combination to each other. Let's say that sometimes they all can be installed as in one appliance. Sometimes they all can be deployed as an individual, as a dedicated role. They can be deployed as in high availability. They can be deployed as in redundancy to each other. This is what we mean by deployment modes, right? Let me just move to the next slide. So the recap we have done in the last video, in the last lecture, we understood about the three-tier architecture. My those friends who have not gone and who have not visited that video, it's my request to them that they please must watch the video. That video has a description where there are clear notes as well. They can use them, and there are a lot of other links for the previous as well as for the next video, right? So just go through that once, and then this video will actually make sense to you. So let me start with the deployment modes. As you can see that we have 5 different types of deployment modes as in checkpoint. That simply means that um, so these two are very common, guys. One is called a standalone, other is called distributed, right? These two are very common. But then both of these, they do not provide high availability. That's the only demerit over here. These two deployment modes have a disadvantage that they do not provide any kind of high availability or redundancy. This is not supported over here, right? If you have to think about redundancy, right, then you need to pick either of these two. But either of these two have all different meanings, right? And now I'm just going to cover each and every mode in my next slides, right? Fifth is the bridge mode that you have seen almost every firewall, every layer 3 firewall gives an option of a bridge mode where it can be configured simply as a layer 2 device, right? It just does not entertain as a layer 3 routing and all that. So let's move, guys. So the first deployment mode, I will call it as the first deployment mode is in standalone, right? As you can see that there is one box. In this one box, there is a firewall and there is a management blade. All the two modules are configured on the one box itself. There is just one box. It's a single appliance or a server. Both the roles of security management server and the security gateway are installed on the same server. Yes, that's true. It's for small organizations. That's true. It's a single point of failure. That's true. Activation key is not asked during standalone mode of activation. So those who already have some experience, they will be able to understand this activation key. But those who have uh, not done it, so this is something I'm going to cover in my next slide. Um, Here, SIC is built automatically just because management server and firewall, they are integrated with each other, right? You do not need to create that exclusive SIC between them. It is already there. And you also do not need to create a gateway object manually, right? The object that you will see the moment you create the first instance, you will see that it's always there, and the gateway as well as the security management server blades will be checked in over there, right? But then that's just the theory. We are going to do an extensive lab on the standalone deployment, right? After this, so just keep watching all the videos, guys. So that's all about the standalone deployment. Next, I'm going to move is to the distributed deployment now. What about in a situation, right, where you have a high throughput, right, where you do not want your gateway to do management stuff, where you want your gateway to only do a gateway related stuff, right, where you know that you have enabled additional modules, IPS, IDS, URL filtering, application filtering. The more blades are enabled, right, the more you need a performance. And if you already have management server role on top of it, it will be degraded, right? There are a chances of packet loss. So considering such situations, right, there is another deployment option that you need to choose, which is called a distributed. We have dedicated appliances for dedicated roles. So that means the entire resources of CPU, memory, as well as hard disk is dedicated for each role. So management has its own CPU, memory, hard disk. Firewall has its own CPU, memory, as well as hard disk, right? So it's a distributed mode of deployment. As the name goes, it's very simple. Two appliances or servers are needed. Each appliance or server is installed with a specific role. This is a management role. This is a server role. Note down the activation key for the gateway. Now, the moment you will do this gateway installation, right? Now look over here, right? This is the management. This is the gateway. Look at this. What is this? It's a network, right? It's a network which is connecting this gateway to the management server. Now, the connectivity between management server and firewall can happen over LAN, or it can also happen over WAN. So that means connectivity has to be there. Okay. Now, how will you be able to trust that this is the firewall that I manage, and how can you trust that I'm actually getting policy from the managed set of security management server? So in order to create that identification in, and like before you can associate, right, and before you can apply a policy to the gateway from the management server, you just need to create a trust between both of them. You need to tell to the firewall that, hey, this is your management server, right? This management server will always give you policies, and this management server is authorized to give you policies, right? On the management server, you will tell him, hey, this is the gateway, right? The moment policies will be installed, the policies will be installed on this. But then before it happens, right, the trust has to be established between it. Just because why? Just because now there is a network entity as well. So that's the reason you just need to create a trust, and this trust is created on the basis of certificate exchange and that concept of keys and all that. So this is actually called SIC, which stands for Secure Internal Communication. It happens between the management server and the firewall. And I said that a firewall can be connected to the management server over a LAN or over a WAN, it does not matter. But if it is distributed deployment, then SIC will have to be established. Now, in order to create a SIC, you actually need to create a kind of password. You just need to create a numeric identifier. That numeric identifier, you need to tell to the management server that this is the numeric identifier of a firewall. Okay, this numeric identifier is a kind of one-time password. It is not reusable, right? So once you create that trust using an activation key of the firewall over the management server, the trust is established, and then you are able to manage the firewall from the management server. I have other videos as well where I'm just going to explain activation key, SIC, as well as ICA processes in detail. Please watch that video. This video is only specific to the deployment kind of theory, right? So this is something what we have done. Activation key. When you are creating a firewall, you will get an activation key. It's a numeric identifier. Let's say that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Just keep note of it, right? Management server and establish the SIG using an activation key. That's right. Once SIG is maintained, when I say SIG is maintained, that means trust. When trust is maintained between the security management server and the gateway, then you can manage the gateway and install policies. If this trust is not established, or if this trust is anyhow um, uh, broken between the two components, you will not be able to install a policy, and you will get a specific error messages with specific code, right? Some kind of TCP connectivity is down, and then you will not be able to connect. Other important thing is that you can manage more than one gateway with a single management server. That's a key. But then, what is the drawback here? Can can anybody guess? The drawback here is that there is no high availability. There is no redundancy. Now, what if the firewall goes down? What will happen, guys? The moment firewall goes down, the whole production is down. And what if the management server goes down? If the management server goes down, there is no immediate production outage. But then, of course, it's an outage, right? It's a problem. You have to get this management server up and running. If it's a dynamic environment, if you need to create policies on and off, if you need to do some logging and all that, then you actually need a standby management server as well. So this is the disadvantage of the deployment mode of distributed. Uh, Next, guys, I'm going to cover is standalone full HA. It's very interesting. Have a look, guys. One box, there's a network. The two boxes are connected with each other. Maybe a LAN connectivity. This is another box. Now, this box has a management server, and this box also has a gateway, right? 1 plus 2. One role firewall, other role is gateway. The other box is just an HA configure of the same box. So that means even if the firewall goes down, right, you still have a firewall right in front of you. Even if the management server goes down, you still have a secondary management server for you. So this is how you make best use of these two boxes. But then it also has some disadvantages, that if there is a high amount of traffic, so then of course you would not like to do it, right? You would not like to create additional role of a management server on a firewall and all that. So let us just go through these features on a wall. This option is called, guys, standalone full HA, right? It's commonly called as a full HA. That's a common name. It's a distributed deployment style. Why it's a distributed? Just because now you have two different boxes, right? One appliance or computer is configured with both management server and the gateway role. Just okay. Other appliance is also configured with both management server and gateway role. Some sort of engineering that you need to configure between them, a kind of clustering, cluster Excel, as well as management high availability. That's something we will just learn in the next videos. The other appliance works as a secondary management server. Once SIG is maintained between the management server and the gateway, you can manage the gateway, right? So that's all about this particular deployment model, right? Just watch my next videos. There is a clear live lab where I'm going to tell you how you can just demonstrate full HA. So guys, till now, let me just do a recap. We have covered three methods. We have done standalone, we have done distributed, we have done standalone full HA. Let me just recap once again, one by one. Standalone, one box, or maybe one server, all the roles are installed on the same appliance or on the same server. That's fine. It gives you best output. But then if your production is a dynamic, and if you have more throughput requirement, you would not opt it. and there is also no high availability, there is no redundancy. If the box goes down, so that means both of your roles are not available to you. There is a distributed deployment. In a distributed deployment, instead of one appliance, you have another appliance. So you have two appliances now, and your each appliance is a dedicated role. So let's say that you can say that my one appliance is a management appliance. This is kind of this is just my management, and my other appliance is my gateway, right? That's all. Gateway is dedicated working as a gateway. All the policies are being applied from the management server. There is a SIG process established manually between the management server and the gateway, and that's how you manage it, right? Management server is a dedicated, it's a dedicated log server as well. We already talked about SIG. SIG is like a numeric identifier. It is like a one-time password, but it's a password. It works like a password. Before you can manage a gateway from any specific management server, you just need to create a trust between them, and that trust is created using an activation key. So that's why you should actually keep note of the activation key that you are doing when you're doing a gateway installation. Other is what we discuss is a standalone full. This is done. This is all right. This is done. This is done. This is also done where we have full redundancy now. We have two gateways and we have two management servers. They both are working as in redundancy to each other, right? Other is a management high availability. In management high availability, guys, you will see that there is no concept of firewall. We are not talking about firewall. We are only talking about management server as well. So there are basically two management server. It is a primary management server and secondary management server, right? Management server cannot be active. They cannot be active, right? The active management server is called the primary, and the other one acts as a standby. Okay. The other two appliances configured in a LAN as a standby to each other. It's HA but only for management role. It's a primary and secondary management server are configured. The database of the security management servers are synchronized. So once management HA is configured between them, once this box is configured as secondary, and once required configuration is done in the global properties of management HA, so then the synchronization start. Even that synchronization has different different phases, right? Full and delta and all that. That's something we will discuss in detail. But this is all about getting redundancy and getting high availability of only the management server, right? When the active Smart Center server is down, then the administrator can make the standby server as an active. Once this management server is active, he will be able to log in back to that, and he will be able to manage firewalls. He will be able to install policies. He will be able to see the logs, current logs as well, and all that, So he will be able to do complete operations to manage all his firewalls, right? The other is that no appliance or server is configured as a gateway role in this model. That's what you need to take care. This is absolutely management HA. There is no firewall discussion in this mode, right? That's all. The next one that I'm going to talk about is bridge mode. Very interesting. We all know that, right? When it's in a bridge mode, it is actually not working as a layer 3 device. So it has no sense of routing and all that. Take an example. Um, it's a situation, right, where you cannot split the LAN and the WAN, right? You do not have that choice. So in that case, right, you do not have an option, right? And the only option that you have is that you can configure your gateway as in bridge mode, but still you will be able to manage it from the management server. You will be able to install policies and all that. And either if it is configured into bridge mode or it is configured into routed mode, all the blades and all the features will be available to you. It does not mean that it's a half set of firewall. All the features will be available to you except IPsec, VPN, and mobile access. This is what we are going to discuss now. So you can install a checkpoint security gateway or cluster XL in a bridge mode. Yes, this feature is available. A security gateway in bridge mode is invisible to layer 3 traffic. It has nothing to do with routing because routing does not make sense to it. It actually works like a switch. When traffic arrives at one of the bridge slave interfaces, the security gateway inspects it and passes it to the bridge slave interface. You can configure only two slave interfaces in a slave bridge interface, and you can think of bridge interface as a two port layer to switch, right? And the port can either be physical or it can be logical like a VLAN. So that's all what's happening over here. Next slide is a continue to bridge mode. Following blades are supported in the bridge mode. So you will see that all the blades which are actually available to you otherwise in a routed mode are all available to you. It's a firewall blade, it's a URL filtering, it's anti-bot, application control, identity awareness, QoS, client authentication, IDS, IPS, DLP, antivirus, HTTPS inspection. All the modes are available to you when you have configured your gateway in bridge mode, except these two. IPsec VPN is not there, and mobile access feature is not there, right? So that's all, guys. That's all. That's an end of this lecture. This lecture was all about understanding of deployment modes, right? We have also done a recap of this. The recap is the three-tier architecture, guys. Just please read about it. And that's all, guys. I wish you best of luck. Have a just wonderful day. Bye, guys.